Okay, how's that for audio? Yep. Can you hear me okay? Excellent. Well, thank you very much for coming along to our session. I will just start with a couple of introductions. My name is Kerry Payne, and I'm the Director of Development for the Maine Food and Beverage Education Centre. And this is my colleague, Sarah Gross, who is the Executive Director and Founder of both the Maine Tasting Centre and the Maine Food and Beverage Education Centre. Let's just click in so you know a little bit about us and why we feel that we have something to share with you from the stage today. Today we're going to be talking about two topics. One is co-opetition and how you can use that to actually working with your competitors in your region to grow market share and also improve your own profitability. And then we'll also be talking about education and how that can be the most valuable marketing tool that you have in your arsenal. So my background, just not to belabor it, but I started life as a business advisor back in Australia. I'm from away, about as far away as you can get from this area. I then came over to the United States during the dot-com boom with a major company. We started consulting to accountants all around the world, teaching them how to be business advisors. And so I've worked with thousands of different industries and tens of thousands of business coaches around the world. I then ran away to New York to be a photographer, and then I ran away to Maine to be a cherry farmer. And so I have, for the last 7 years, been farming Maine's largest cherry farm. We established it, and we have 200 sour cherries under crop, and last year put in 150 cherry blossoms. So we'll also be farming the flowers. And we don't sell the fruit. We only create value-added products. So the last 7 years has been a learning curve like none other. I mean, how many of you in this area are actual farmers? Well, I take my hat off to you because I have run global companies and nothing has been harder in my life than farming my 2-acre cherry farm. I'm telling you, it is both beautiful and soul-destroying at the same time, especially this past year, right? And most recently, I'm so excited to say, during the 7 years I've been here, I started working with SCORE, which is a division of the Small Business Administration, as a mentor. So that's a free mentoring service available to business owners in Maine. If you haven't checked it out, it's a great resource. There's a lot of really talented people who are giving their time to help business owners get through anything that they're going through. And now I am here, Carolyn, waving from the booth. Has anyone in the group stopped in at it's the Maine Tasting Centre. It's on Route 1 in Wiscasset. It's a group of crazy buildings. You know, there's a lighthouse and a barn and a lot of different coloured buildings. One of the things that we hear is that people know it's there but aren't ever really quite sure what it is that we're doing in there, and so that's our goal today, is to let you know what we do and how we might be able to help you as producers, as agriculture farmers. And is there anyone here that's producing value-added products? Okay, what are you producing?
We do maples, so we make everything with maple.
Everything maple? Yep. Okay, maples. All right, a lot of maple. What else? What are you farming? What are you farming? You raised your hand as a farmer. Blueberries? Okay. Okay. Any other value-added products? Just helps if I know what you're doing. I might be able to tailor some of the examples towards your industry specifically. So, all right, and now let's introduce Sarah, our Executive Director and the founder of the Maine Food and Beverage Education Centre. And we'll talk a little bit about what we do there and how we can help you in just a moment. Okay. Sarah, did you want to introduce? Yep, okay.
It's hard to get it.
Was it because I went too close?
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, if you stand back a little bit.
Okay. All right.
All right. Technical difficulties. Hi, everybody. My name is Sarah Gross, and as Carrie said, I am the Executive Director and founder of both Maine Tasting Centre and Maine Food and Beverage Education Centre. My background is in anthropology, more specifically museums, so I really am coming at food education with a background in museums and community engagement, so that's always been very important to me, is to sort of get people excited, because that's how you get people to want to engage, is to tell the story, put it in a way that is accessible and understandable, just like you would in a museum. That's how you generate excitement and get people to want to participate in the system. So that's my quick background. I'm not going to belabor it too much, but I'm very excited to be here with you all today.
Can you hear me now? Okay, great. All right, so let's move on to the subject that you're here to hear about. You don't need to see me and this is my tractor, by the way. For most of you farmers, this is like a lawnmower, right? But I was so excited the day I got that tractor. I can't tell you. All right, so a little bit about the Food and Beverage Education Center. We are so much more than a tasting room. We have a campus that consists of a learning center where we run classes, and we work with producers, we work with farmers, we work with people who are what else is? I mean, that's it. Producers and farmers are pretty much the people that we're bringing in. One of the things we'll talk about later in this session is how education is such an important tool in your marketing bag, and this is what our learning center is all about. So our goal is to give an opportunity to Maine producers to come in and explain to people what their passion is. I mean, everybody who's creating their product or growing their product knows more about that product than anybody else. And so this is an opportunity where we can actually allow customers to learn more about the stories behind the product. So learn about what it was that got you excited about starting this business or taking it over from your long, heritage of farming families. And also to learn about the product. I mean, there is so much that can be gained from the foods that we're eating and, the types of foods that we're putting into our bodies that we often don't give enough thought to or don't know enough about. And so this is an opportunity to bring, as we like to say, we create a bridge between the producers of Maine and the public. And this is particularly important when some of the producers are far-flung, as our state is such a big state and it's not so easy. We have a wonderful central location right in Wiscasset where we can capture a lot of the visitors to Maine. And then what Sarah does so beautifully, and she'll explain a little bit later, is she actually encourages people to go to the places where they can learn more about your product. So if you are a farm that has farm visits or a farm store, if you have a tasting room or something, then part of the experience is to try it at the tasting room and then move on. So last year we represented 126 Maine producers in our tasting room. We had 877 people come through classes. Now bear in mind this is a really tiny team, so they've been super effective. There were like 2 people working on this in the last 12 months. Thousands of people came through the tasting room to try Maine products. We're only offering Maine products. That's all we're about. And we're also a farm drop hub. So this is particularly good for farmers who want to expand their distribution network. So Sarah, again, has been very instrumental in making that possible so that a lot of the people around the mid-coast can actually get access to products from farmers beyond. We are a site for community events. We hosted the first Needham Festival last year. And speaking of Needhams, I'm Australian. We mostly got sent to Australia because we were convicts, so I'm not above bribery, not at all. I have some Needhams. If I ask some questions and you answer correctly, or even if you give it a go, then there could be some sugar in it for you. I'll throw out some Needhams. A good Maine-based, potato-based candy, for sure. And then, of course, we're a tourist destination as well. So tourist destination is probably the least important thing that we do, even though it is what I think most people think of us as because of the Tasting Center. But hopefully, after today, that won't be the case. And Chip. Mayday, Mayday. So let's talk about Co-Opetition. Does anybody know what Co-Opetition is in the room? Does anyone want to have a go? I mean, it's written up there. Guys, come on, it's not that hard. There's a Needham in it for you. You could do this. So Co-Opetition is an amalgamation of the 2 words, competition and cooperation. So one of the things that as a small business owner or, whatever size your business is, it's very hard to get your head around is why would I want to do anything that helps my competitor? And in fact, the goal of this session is to tell you why, in fact, that could be good for you both, not just for one or the other. The goal really is to work together with the people in your industry and or your region to build a bigger pie, get more people interested in your product or your area, and then you compete for a bigger slice of the pie after that. So is that clear? Like that's makes sense? Okay. So it involves collaboration among competitors, cooperation collaboration, cooperation and competition rather, work together towards goals and grow the market. You can do cost savings, and I'll throw some examples out of, on a smaller scale. Some of the examples I'm going to talk to you about here are major businesses, but it's absolutely just as effective with any size operation, be it agriculture or food and beverage producing. So you'll be able to, you can expand your reach. Some of the prime examples of co-opetition happening right now in Maine are our co-ops. Think about the co-ops, everyone comes together, or a farmer's market. That's co-opetition in action, where you might all be wanting to sell your blueberries, but you'll come together because that will bring more people in, and you have a better chance of selling your blueberries when more people come together. Innovation is a really important one. Many times it's hard for us to be able to afford to do the research or to conduct the innovation that we need in order to go to the next step within our businesses. But when you partner with somebody else in the industry, it can make it much more cost effective to do that. By the way, if you have questions, please ask me throughout the session. We won't be having a break at the end for Q&A. And you can reduce the risk as well. So let's say, for example, me as a cherry farmer, I bought cherry trees that can be hand harvested. Now, at some point, when they're in full production, I may not want to spend the week it takes to have a team hand harvesting the cherries. I may want to look at a blueberry harvester, an over-the-bush blueberry harvester that can be modified. And so that it may, if there were other cherry farmers like me in Maine, I may partner with them on looking at how we can modify that machine so that it can work for us. And so while I'm sort of throwing these ideas out, I invite you to think about your own business and who in your area or in your industry might be somebody that you could feel that you could work with to get a better result for both of you at the end. So some strategies are, and this is just by the way, I will give you a copy of these slides at the end. If you email me, I'll send them to you, so you don't, do it if you want, so you can look at it tonight, because it'll probably be a day or two. But so strategic alliances. Who might you form a strategic alliance with in the maple industry, for example? Yep. Think about the groups in Maine. Maine does it very well. Maine is one of the most fascinating and formidable food states in the United States. Think about the wine tours. Think about the beer trails. It's like, what could you do in your region? If you are a farmer who is thinking about agritourism, is there somebody else in your region that might draw? This is particularly important if you're a little bit remote. So my cherry farm, for example, I partnered with some of the other businesses in my area, because I'm 10 minutes out of Damariscotta, but no one knows where Bremen is. No one's heard of it, so I have to. So I worked with the local brewery. I worked with the local pig farm called Broad Arrow, which is an amazing little farm down there in Bristol. Worked with the sauerkraut company, and we created our own little sort of peninsula trail. And so we promote that. We put together a postcard and we promote that, each of us, to say, hey, here's a fun day you can spend down on the peninsula. And think about what you might be able to do in your own region. Even if they're not in the same industry as you, are they complementary? Do they complement the industry? Or can you work with them to bring more people down? Information sharing, that's a huge one. I mean, we know that, when it comes time to introduce a new product or bring in new technology or take on some new manufacturing tools, knowing which way to go is one of the hardest things to do, especially if there's a significant investment required. So when you are actually working with people in the same industry, and that's what a lot of the associations in Maine do very well, by the way. They kind of really are facilitating this co-opetition as a strategy. Joint ventures. If there's a new product that you want to release, but you don't want to take on all the risk yourself, or you just don't have the energy, then perhaps you can partner with somebody else in your industry to do that. Marketing campaigns, that's an easy one, and probably the one that feels the most comfortable to most people to start joint marketing. Again, how do you get people excited about Maine blueberries? How do you get people excited about Maine cherries? It's a new one. We're kind of a fairly newish entry into the market. And then research and development, and supply chain collaboration is also an important one. So one of the conversations I've had recently is people just even with being able to bottle or can their products. So I know some friends who own cideries and breweries, and when the time came for them to get off keg and to start offering canned products so that they could get into retail stores, the cost of canning was prohibitive for these small batch brewers. So they identified a mobile canner who still had a minimum run that he needed to do, and they pulled together. And so they were able to hire him for the amount of time he requires, but all of them were able to get their canning done. So think about different ways that you might be able to work together to the same end. Or even when it comes to bottles. My products, I have Shrub, I have bath and beauty products, so I'm always sourcing bottles. And the only way they're affordable is when you buy them in bulk. But to buy them in bulk, it takes years for a small batch producer to get through them. So is there someone else who's offering a similar product that you can partner with and purchase the products, in scale at a discount that makes it affordable? So some successful co-opetition case studies that you might recognize are the airlines. As much as we hate them, they've actually done it pretty well. You think about all of the lounges. You think about the code share operation that they have. You think about the One Alliance or the frequent flyer miles, where you can fly with one and get free points for another. Now they're fiercely competitive, but they've realized that this actually gives them a competitive edge over everyone else when they do this together. Hershey and Mars collaborated on a sustainable cocoa on farming practices once it came to light, or they started to realize that their farming practices were not ideal. So rather than each of them going down that route and trying to do the investment to put that together, they worked together. Coke and Pepsi used to share bottling plants in areas. Again, you won't get two more formidable competitors than Coke and Pepsi, but they would share bottling plants in smaller rural areas where it didn't justify having their own. Danone and General Mills Yogurt collaborated in the 2000s on yogurt innovations, which led to Greek yogurt, which was one of the highest selling yogurts in the country. And Nestle and Starbucks, again, competitors, but Nestle decided that they would spend a lot of money, I think around $18 million, to be able to distribute Starbucks coffee. Netflix and Amazon. There are so many examples where they think about the bigger picture, and that's probably one of the hardest things for a small business owner or a medium-sized business owner to do, is to think, yes, there's a risk that my competitor might find out my trade secrets, but is the end result of us doing this together going to be better for us than not? And sometimes the sum is greater than the individual parts. So co-opetition in agriculture, just some examples. Marketing, you look at the Lobster Marketing Association. They've been pretty genius at what they do. Shared processing and branding, joint distribution networks, farmers markets and co-ops, and beverage trails, farm trails, agriculture, etc. So, Sarah, is this an opportunity for us to perhaps talk about AMFP so one of the other things that we do at the Food and Beverage Education Center is we support the associations as well. So while we have a lot of one-on-one relationships with Maine producers, we also are working closer now with many of the associations. And Sarah has built this from the ground up, so she's far more qualified to speak on it than I am. Thanks, Sarah.
All right, try to avoid bursting your eardrums again. Yes, so the Alliance of Maine Food Producers is something that we have been managing since our inception. It's as old as Maine Tasting Center, and it's an association of associations. The Alliance of Maine Food Producers is a place for groups like the Cheese Guild and the Wine Guild and the Seaweed Council and all of those groups to come together under one roof because, again, when we are cooperating with each other, co-opetition, we can reach so many more people. We're consolidating these messages under one roof to create a Maine food brand, like a larger umbrella brand that we can sell to people, get them interested in, educate them about, and create this sort of loyalty that benefits all of the individual groups and categories within that larger whole. So we are working this year on putting together a exhibit hall on our campus that will have space for all of those associations in the Alliance of Maine Food Producers, creating one single place that, for example, a tourist or even a Mainer could come through and learn about what's going on in the Maine food scene. The associations themselves are a great example of co-opetition, as Carrie has said, and that is something that we focus on a lot when we are talking to the public about these industries and the associations that represent them, is how amazing it is that this co-opetition exists in Maine, and that is something that really sets Maine apart from other places that you might go. So.
I will say that I will second the little love message to Maine. Moving here 7 years ago from New York City, so that was quite a contrast, was one of the best things I've ever done. Maine's co-opetition exists just in life. I mean, I've never met a more friendly group of people willing to help, willing to pitch in, no matter where they stand, on the spectrum of things. At the end of the day, everyone's just people, and I really love that about Maine. And I think that's probably why there is such success within these associations and why co-opetition, everybody supports one another here. Everyone works hard and supports one another, and it's a really great state to be in. So let's keep moving. Am I doing that, Chip? Is that me? It's probably me. I'll bust into a Taylor Swift song. I'm the problem, it's me. All right, so co-opetition for food and beverage producers. These are some examples. Co-packing, I mentioned the cans, but the same thing can be true for, bottling or packaged goods. Joint marketing, shared distribution, buying co-ops, all very similar, and then shared production facilities as well. I mean, how many of us are busting out, if we're producers working out of home, how many of us are busting out of home? Do you remember what it's like to have a dining table you could actually eat dinner on? I mean, that would be nice, wouldn't it? What a treat. So maybe you can partner with some colleagues or some peers and rent a space together so that everything gets a little bit more affordable and possible. So one of the challenges, of course, is trust. How close do you want to get your competitors get to you, and how close do you want to get to them? So we recommend just a really simple stage of identify goals. Make sure that you're working with somebody that you can do a handshake deal with, but don't necessarily only do a handshake deal with. But if you couldn't do that, then they're not the right people. Make sure that you have shared goals, that you're not going to be pulling in opposite directions. Assess their capabilities. There might be a lot of people who want to glob onto you because you're so far ahead of the curve, but it has to be a two-way street. It's got to be somebody that can bring something to the table that you can't already do. And it may be that you have better equipment and they have better marketing, and so perhaps as a unit you can both elevate. Practice transparency. So that's one of the most important things is, that you're upfront and honest with each other about everything that's happening so that nobody ever starts, because you know what the mind is like. It's it goes like crazy if you have to sort of put things together yourself. So make sure that everything is upfront, regular meetings and, reports and updates. And establish the ground rules. it's probably, depending on the scale that you're looking to do, if you're going to buy a batch of bottles together, you probably don't need a legal contract. But if you're going to, invest in a large machine, maybe you do. There needs to be some legality to whatever it is that you're doing. So some of the challenges are competitive concerns. People may fear losing their customers, but I really truly believe that with Co-Opetition, you do build a bigger pie. Rather than competing for a bigger piece of the pie, it's far better for everyone in the industry or the region to work together to get more people there, to get more people aware of the product, to get more people interested in the product, and you build a bigger pie, and therefore everybody's piece gets a little bit bigger. Communication issues we already discussed, and then managing conflicts. Really simple way to do this if you're going to do any kind of handshake deal or non-legally binding deal with somebody is to put together a mutual commitment statement. It's kind of a mouthful, but it's essentially something that you both write out together. You say, I agree to do this, 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 and this. It might be as simple as, I will respond to your emails or your phone calls within 1 day. I will not use your name in marketing until you get to sign off on it. I won't use your branding until you get to sign off on it. I won't make any purchasing decisions without your input. And you just make that list together and you each sign it. And then if stuff starts to go off the rails, you can bring that back in and you can say, here's the agreement that we made. And let's just recommit to that right now. How are we doing on time, Sarah? Are we doing okay on time? All right, so this is where it gets to be a little bit scholarly, boring, KPIs, but they say that people who aim at nothing at all usually hit it with tremendous accuracy. So you do need to have some goals. You do need to be able to measure whether or not you're getting some better results from the efforts that you're putting in. So KPIs are essentially a key performance indicator. It's something that you need to be achieving in order for you to know that things that you're doing are actually working. Track progress regularly. What you can measure, you can manage, they say. If you're not measuring it, I've got so many of those. I can keep going for a day. You set your sail, I won't do it. And then be open to change. Don't be afraid to be like, we're kind of almost there. We're not quite there. We need to just change tack a little bit and revisit. All right. Are we? Oh, look at that. I can't believe that. I did that in exactly the right time. Can we just make a note of that? It's never going to happen again. Let's mark the date. Awesome. Okay. So before I move into the education as a marketing tool, does anyone have any comments, questions, observations about Co-Opetition? Was that helpful? That's the first thing I'd like to know. Was that a helpful session to help you understand what it is and how it might be applied in your own region, your own industry? Nodding is good. Thank you. Any questions? No? It's a little bit difficult to get into a topic like that in 30 minutes. So one of the things I will suggest is if you are looking for some help, if you really want to get into the nitty-gritties, it's not what we do, but it is what SCORE does. So again, I am a SCORE mentor. If you wanted to get in touch with your local SCORE chapter, they will be able to put you in touch with somebody who can maybe sit down with you and help brainstorm ideas specifically for your business. Okay, so education as a marketing tool. That's even in our name. So this is where we hit our strides. The more you tell, the more you sell. So it sounds again like, let's say you're a blueberry farmer. Why would I want to know about education as part of my? Well, it literally is. The more you tell, the more you sell. Are you doing a particular thing with your blueberries? Do your blueberries have a flavor that's a little bit unlike anybody else's? What is it about your product or your process? There are only two ways that you can really differentiate yourself in most industries in the world. And that is, one is through the actual product that you're growing, producing, creating. And two is through the process that the customer experiences when they buy that product from you. So you can try and differentiate both ways, or you can pick one and say, this is where I'm going to be different. Now, if it's in the product, then you need to be able to tell the story of why your product is different to every other product out there on the market, why it's better than every other product out there on the market. And if it's about process, then that is about again, talking about why people are going to have a much better experience dealing with you. Because when you think about a customer, your customer is not just somebody else who's coming in to buy maple syrup. Your customer is somebody who has bought anything, anywhere, anytime, because they are always judging every experience they had as a customer against this current experience that they're having as a customer. So process is equally as important as product when you are selling direct, either to wholesale customers or to retail customers. So I'm not even going to spend much time on that, but essentially what this pyramid talks about is that most people don't know that they're actually ready to buy. They just don't know that they're ready to buy yet. And so that's why the education process comes in. We need to be able to really inform them as to why this might be a good thing for them. It's not about being a snake oil salesman at all. I mean, you have to believe in your product and you have to be honest in your communications about your product. But many times it just takes a little bit of information for somebody to be able to say, oh, didn't know that about that. That's a good thing. I'm going to try that. Like if you have gout, for example, sour cherries are the best thing in the world for you. A lot of people don't know that. So educational campaigns build loyalty and brand loyalty. So what you want to try and avoid is selling your product one time. You really want to have a customer become loyal to your brand so that you don't have to keep selling over and over and over again. You know, put your time and effort into either the way that you're delivering the product, differentiating that way, or finding new ways to use your same content in different avenues rather than trying to find new customers all the time. It's much better to create a brand loyal customer if you can. And education is one of the best ways to do that. It counters misinformation, so people may think they know about a product or, you know, a way something is being farmed or whatever, but if you don't tell them, in fact, that's not true, then they'll never know. They'll go along thinking that. And it positions the brand as an authority. So the different ways that you can get your stories out there. I mean, it's hard. It's time-consuming, but it doesn't have to be expensive. Social media has been one of the greatest things for business owners ever to arrive, and also one of the worst things because of the time it takes to put the content in, and the time it sucks up because once you're on there, you get lost for an hour. But it is truly one of the most efficient ways to get directly to your customers for practically free. So social media, YouTube, you can webinars, email newsletters, website content. You can get some earned press, get the local newspaper to do a little write-up about you and why, you know, you've been serving the region for so many years and why people might want to come and check you out if they haven't done so. Classes and workshops. We're going to have Sarah talk about that in a moment. Interactive content. So again, if you can get people to interact with you, use a quiz, use a poll, use something, then they're going to, it's sticky. That's what we call sticky marketing. They're going to remember it a little bit more. And then ask for real-time feedback, just so that you know whether it's working or not. So these are some of the images of some of the classes that we have run at the Maine Tasting Center, at the Learning Center, and at the Maine Food and Beverage Education Center, all of which are on the same campus. And Sarah's going to talk a little bit now about the types of classes we run and some of her observations as a result of us doing this for the last 3 years.
All right. So yes, as Carrie has said, we do a booming business on our campus of running classes in partnership with producers like you. And the reason that we do that, first and foremost, is because we really believe in the power of education as a marketing tool for Maine's food and beverage producers. So some of the types of classes that we do include what I call industry survey classes. So we have a whole class on Maine wild blueberries. We have a class on maple syrup. We have a class on meads from Maine. I see a mead maker in the audience. Things that will just introduce people to a whole industry in Maine, and then the individual producers in it. But this is a great example of co-opetition, because what that does is it helps build, first and foremost, interest in the industry that you're working in. If people don't know what meat is and they've never tried it, they're probably not going to buy it in the store unless they have a better understanding of what it is. So running that general class really hopefully benefits all of the mead makers in Maine through education about the industry. We also have, as you can see up here, hands-on workshops where we have producers from Maine come in to teach their craft. It could be bagel making, kimchi making, sausage making, cheese making. These are all classes that we've done. Needham making, we do that. And what I see as the benefit of this is, there are many benefits, but first, if you are a producer teaching this class, it positions you as an expert in that category, so people see you as an expert. It shows people what it takes to make your product, so that is sort of telling your story. What sets you apart? What is the process, as Carrie was saying? And it also just generates interest. It introduces your brand to customers and generates interest in the category and the product that you sell. In addition to hands-on classes and industry survey classes, we also do lots of what I call Meet the Producer events, which are just kind of like low-key, just an opportunity for you to be there sampling out your product. There might be a little bit more of an education component to it. For example, I'm going to call out people that I can see. We've had Bruce from Tree Spirits Winery come and do a little bit of education about absinthe. What is it? People don't know what it is. They're not going to buy it. So he comes out and he shows people, this is how you prepare it in a glass. You know, this is the type of equipment that you might need. And then they get to meet him, the producer who made it. So it's really an interesting experience for people. And then the pop-up dinners, of course, are a great way to showcase what you can do through the skills of a chef. When they have your product in their hand, what is possible? Is there anything else you'd like me to touch on for classes? Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so the key components of education and how you can make it work for you in your marketing is content. Content is king. So we talk about creating green content. Create content that can be used over and over and over again in different ways and through different channels. And it can be, as nowadays, people are not as interested in perfection as they were 20 years ago. You know, you don't need to bring in a camera crew to film an interview segment. People are actually responding better to a reel, an Instagram, or a little video done on your phone, where it's the farmer in the field or the producer in the room, the tap room, just talking about the thing that they do. And so it can be very inexpensive, and it can be very quick as well. So, and importantly, it gives people a connection because they feel as though they're hearing the true story from the person who's making this product that they like or that they're interested in buying. So create the content and then figure out as many different ways to use that same content as you can so that you're not spending your entire time creating content. You can use it in blogs, in emails, in Instagram or Facebook posts or direct mail. You can create a little postcard for very little money. $250 will get 500 postcards out to your region. You know, it doesn't have to be hugely expensive amount of money that you have to invest to get your name out there. You can give them in-depth information. So let's say you're in Hannaford or you're in the local co-op. There's usually just a little tag on the shelf that says the name of your product, whereas that doesn't really explain why your product is different or why people should buy the product. It's just saying this is what it is and this is how much it costs. Whereas now you have an opportunity through your own channels to really tell the story behind the product, to explain all of the benefits and the ingredients and the process and why it is that your product stands apart from the competition. And you can address pain points as well. So one of the people buy typically because they have a problem they need to have solved, or because they aspire to something. They want to do something, feel something, experience something. So you get to explain to them why this product will help them do that. It builds relationships, most importantly. Again, we talked a little bit already about how the last thing you want to do is, it costs on average 6 times more to attract a new customer than it does to sell to an existing customer. So the more you can connect with your customers and really establish that relationship with them, have them hook into you as either a brand or a product loyalty, then the less it's going to cost you to continue to make money. And don't we all want that, especially after the last 12 months? So the people that you might create content for or invite into some of your sessions, by the way, this doesn't have to create content as well. This spring, I opened my farm, my orchard up to farm tours, and we had 100 people come through, 3 different tours. And I literally walked them through the orchard and explained the different types of cherries that we had and the different types of cherry blossoms and the farming methods we were using. And then I walked them to the farm store, and they literally exited through the gift store. And but they loved it. People felt it was a really great Saturday out. I'm actually, if you are, thinking about agritourism and how you might sort of take advantage of that, there's a great summit happening here on Thursday, the Agritourism Summit. My farm was selected as one of the first 20 pilot farms to go through an agritourism program that's being put on by the Department of Agriculture and the Office of Tourism jointly. And so even though my little cherry blossom trees, 150 of them, are only this big, and we had a freeze this year which took out all the blossoms, I ended up having my first Hanami picnics, or Japanese cherry blossom festival picnics, on the property. And I did get to show them 6 flowers. We had 6 flowers that actually made it. So but I decorated the property in pinks and, lanterns, and people brought their picnics. They actually paid. They paid money to come and picnic on my property. Part of that was a $10 voucher that they could redeem they paid $35, and $10 they could redeem in the store. And then they just got to take a picnic and see the 6 cherry blossoms. And I offered them a money-back guarantee because we had no blossoms, and they all said it was wonderful, and they didn't want their money back. So there are many other ways you can educate people that don't involve sitting down at a computer, if that's not your thing. You can bring them to your property and just explain to them and talk to them about what it is that you do. Retailers, influencers, these are all the people that you need to educate. If you're selling wholesale, you need to make sure that the people that are buying from you also know why they should buy from you, and not the next guy that's coming in selling the same product as you. You can read schools, influencers. Oh my gosh, influencers, I hate that word, but it is a powerful marketing strategy. All right. So the types of things you could put out, and this is stuff that you probably already have, many of you. Recipes. You have recipes for your product. Get that out to the world. Put it on your website. Get it out in an email. Put it on social media. How-tos. How do I get the best out of this? How do I use maple sugar? We're using maple sugar in one of our infusion kits. I might have to talk to you later on for some maple sugar. The product origins. What's the story behind the product? Is there any industry news? What are the nutrition facts? These are just all things that you can draw on for putting together content that you can share with people. Okay, so how do you measure success? How do you know whether what you're doing is working? Are you getting email signups every time you send out a request for, please, join our mailing list? By the way, if you are working with social media, I strongly recommend that you start to move people over to your email list, because it's the only thing you ever really own. All of the social media apps are owned by other people, and you're at the mercy of their algorithms. They could change how your stuff is going to be seen at any point. Your list is the only thing, your mailing list is the only thing you truly own. So you need to put in place a strategy, that's just an aside, to get people to come over. And that could be as simple as we let people on our mailing list know about our workshops first. So if you want to have the first opportunity to sign up before all of the places have gone, sign up on our mailing list, and then we'll let you know first. And so, there's really easy ways that you can do that. Are you getting more subscribers? Are you getting more followers? Did your website traffic increase? And most importantly, did you get more sales as a result of this? Okay, so some of the challenges are keeping the content fresh, the time that it takes. I know when you're out doing the thing that you do, doing it, it can be very hard to take time out to work on. If there's any possibility, you can hire somebody to do that for you. That's not always possible, I know. So one way you can make it work is to set aside an afternoon. Tuesday from 3 till 7, I'm working on the business, not in it. And so that is the time that I set aside to write all of my marketing pieces and anything that needs to be done for the next week or so. You need to engage different learning styles. That's why a multi-pronged attack is recommended. So I'm an experiential learner. I love coming into a class. I love going into a tasting center and trying something. Other people want to do a deep dive and read everything about every ingredient they possibly can. Some people just want to see pretty pictures of it, and that's all they need. So, you have to sort of figure out how's my audience going to respond best, and try different ways to make sure you hit all of the different types of learning styles out there. Monitor analytics, okay. Some case studies. Let me just go back one. Two famous case studies that you would all know about that kind of fit into the ag world. Got Milk, one of the most successful campaigns ever, and the 5 a Day campaign for getting people to eat more vegetables. So, think about your own products and how can you perhaps start a little campaign of your own to get people to be like, you know what, I really do need to do this. I mean, look at apple cider vinegar. 10 years ago, it was only something our grandmothers drank. Now, everybody needs their daily dose of apple cider vinegar just so they can keep their gut health in check. So, there's movements everywhere. And then, of course, there's the eggs, the poor egg farmers. One day they're terrible for you, the next day they're wonderful, and then they're terrible, and then they're wonderful. But these are all based on education campaigns. So Sarah's just going to talk briefly to one of our most successful education programs, which is called the Flavors of Maine. And this is a fun one that Sarah heads up.
All right, yes. So Flavors of Maine 101 is a program that we introduced actually just this last summer. It is a program that we run pretty much every single day in our tasting room in Wiscasset. And it's intended to just be like a drop-in introduction to the broader Maine food scene. So the goal is that people will take this class to become acquainted with, what are the industries that people are working in Maine? What kinds of products are coming out of Maine? And this is sort of our version of a broad education-based marketing campaign for food in Maine and agritourism. It has been wildly successful. We ran this program 50-some times this past summer, and we've gotten great feedback on it. So for just a quick summary, usually this program is accompanied by a 6-item tasting board. So someone will sit down with me or one of our other staff members in the tasting room. They'll get a board that has 6 different items on it, and each one of those items is meant to tell the story of a Maine industry. We really do try to weave in industries that people from outside of Maine might not think of when they think of Maine. Everyone knows blueberries and lobster. Those are the 2 big ones that we hear. But not everybody knows about seaweed or potatoes. Those are the ones that tend to surprise people when we start talking about them. So giving people a more holistic view of what's going on in Maine. And one of the results that I see from this program is that people come in with just like, oh, that would be cool. It's something to do. And they leave with a really deep excitement about Maine food and the producers who are making it. By telling these stories behind the individual products that we're using to represent an industry, people build this connection. Even in as short a time as 30 minutes, they feel like they leave knowing some of these producers. Like they leave knowing Christy, who makes mead up in Gardner. And the thing that does is it encourages agritourism. So when we end this program, we kind of sit with the people who are in the program and we explore their interests a little further. What did you connect with in the program, and how can you go out somewhere else in Maine and keep learning about it? So we are directing people to farms that have farm stands or that have farm tours, or where you can do a tasting with more meads than just the one that you got in our tasting room, and really pushing that. Because when people go to the farm and they have that personal experience with the farmer that they learned about, they're never going to forget it. That's really, really important for building that brand loyalty. So that's kind of the thought behind this program. It is another great example of co-opetition. What we're doing here is not promoting one brand over another. It's trying to build a market for Maine foods in general and an appreciation and enthusiasm for them.
Yeah, that's perfect. And one of the things that Sarah does that I love is she really also takes us on a timeline through Maine foods as well. So she starts with, it's oysters, isn't it? The first, usually it's like, it starts with the first, with beans, Okay. Right. And then, do you want to talk to the crickets? Maybe just, do you mind just spending a little bit of time on how you take them through the progression?
Yes. Sorry, I turned my mic on too soon. Yes, so in this program, we do follow a timeline because giving people that narrative is also helpful. We start with things that have either grown wild or been cultivated in Maine for a long time, like beans and blueberries. We sort of go through agriculture, touching on potatoes and grains and things like that. We then end up in some sort of newer initiatives in Maine, like aquaculture, things that are up and coming, innovative, really speak to Maine's role as a leader in sustainable food industries. One of the things that I sometimes touch on is edible insects. A lot of people don't know that we have a couple of edible insect companies here in Maine, and that they're really at the forefront of something cool and sustainable. And that kind of education, I think, is a very powerful marketing tool, because you're talking about an industry that people would maybe laugh at when you first say it, because there's just not enough information out there about it. Aquaculture can be kind of the same. People don't really know what I'm talking about when I bring it up. But once you give them that education about why it's important, how it could be helpful in the future, how it creates additional income streams for Maine producers, people connect with it, and then they're interested in exploring that further. So the number of times that I've just mentioned crickets at the end of my program and then had someone go to the store and buy a pack to try, makes me so happy, because that's the goal.
Thanks, Sarah. And it is really cool how many innovators we have in Maine too. I mean, we have some people doing some really cool stuff here. All right, so let's wrap this up. You've been an awesome group, by the way. Thank you. In conclusion, timing again is on par. Education increases brand loyalty. I'm just telling you the things that we've already touched on now. It can boost sales. It can improve brand perception. It can mitigate any health concerns that people might have that they, because of being poorly informed about your product. It attracts new customers, and it can differentiate your brand. So next steps, and I did it again, Chip. If you aren't already a member of your own association, explore that and see if there are some benefits to you that you may be missing out on, or that could be useful to you. You can reach out to people in your region, local peers, either in the same industry or in the same region, to see if there might be some way you can get together. And this is going to sort of encompass both the co-opetition and the education part as well now. Can you make a out in the middle of Maine Sunday where you encourage people to come out and then you give them a little schedule to follow? Kind of like, the New York Times puts out the 48 hours in Vermont or 24 hours in Maine kind of, what do you call those, like a little guidelines? Guides, yeah. See if there's something like that you can do. Seek coaching. If there's something that you think you'd like to try but you're not sure where to start, reach out. I do recommend you reach out to SCORE or anybody if you're able to. There are many other people offering business advice specifically for agriculture and food and beverage producers in Maine. And most importantly, please come and visit us at the Maine Food and Beverage Education Center and the Maine Tasting Center. Our campus is currently closed for winter, but we will reopen in June? May for programs. Until then, though, you can actually participate in some classes. We have partnered with Mary Meeting. Do you want to just talk to Mary Meeting a little bit? Just like a minute.
Yes. As Carrie has mentioned, we do still run classes through the winter through our partnership with Mary Meeting Adult Education, which is fantastic. They have a huge audience and are always looking for food-related classes. This is great because the people who are signing up for them really want to be there. They want to learn about your product. So we have a couple of those this week, a couple in February, and then we will reopen our campus for our regularly scheduled programming in May. And yeah, if you want to explore that further with us, come talk to us. We're right over there. Always looking for partners.
Our museum center, our museum space, the Discovery Center, is going to be opening this year as well. So it's going to be pretty exciting. So on that note, I would like to just put up our contact details in case you would like to reach out to us to learn more. This is how you can find us on all of the different avenues. On Instagram, we are on Facebook. I didn't put Facebook up there as well, but if you look up Maine Tasting Center or Maine Food and Beverage Education Center on Facebook, you'll find us. And we have a booth here, so we're here for the next 3 days. So thank you very much. You've been a good group. Is there anyone who is really dying to have a Needham after I've mentioned it? We got 2 Needhams. You got to catch it. That's right. Are you ready? Let's see how we go. Good. Soft hands. I like it. Let's see if there you go. Nice work. Okay. All right. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate it.